All right, so I just want to talk about one particular posture that people will take when they're playing guard that I think is actually probably one of the worst things you can do when you're playing guard, which is going to be this sort of like elbow propped position here, because it basically has all the cons of seated and supine and none of the positives. If I play a seated guard, for example, this is great for me because I can be aggressive on Damien, I can come forward, attack him, things like this. But I'm vulnerable to side passing, like, him starting to go around the side of my legs here. And I'm also vulnerable to him, getting to my waist and things like this towards like body locks just because of the way I'm playing. This doesn't mean that you can't defend against those things, but this is probably the major vulnerability of playing a seated guard. And then supine, I can defend against side-to-side passing much more effectively because of the way I can like angle myself and things like this. And I'm in a better position to defend the space at my hips here. But I can't be all that aggressive on Damien. If I'm trying to make connection on him here, he can disengage, re-engage on me, sort of as he chooses here. When I play this elbow prop position, I have that same vulnerability of side-to-side passing where Damien can move around my legs and things like this. And he also has that ability to get to my waist quite comfortably from this position here, just because of how I position myself.
Super quickly, like and subscribe.
But I also have the cons of not being able to be all that aggressive. If I want to come out of this position and be aggressive, I need to get up to seated so I can actually move forward. When I'm propped up on my elbow here, not so much. It's hard for me to actually move around and move forward. And this is not great for me. And then I have none of the defensive benefits where of going supine where I can defend. So you just shouldn't play this guard position. If you watch people playing this position, it's generally, if they hang out here for any extended amount of time, you're going to see them get past quite quickly afterwards. Now, there is an exception for where you might play this, but this is not as a guard. And it would be like if you watch someone like Craig Jones, where they're using this more as a way of conceding their guard and trying to play a lot of these like octopus style attacks here where they're trying to heist and things like this. Trying to go into like outside funks, but they're not necessarily playing this like actually as a guard. It's more of like a position to try and turtle. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying never be in an elbow prop position. Like it might be like, I'm trying to make my way back up to standing, for example, but I should never be hanging out here. And even still, I would avoid it if I can. If I'm playing supine, I don't want to sort of come up to an elbow prop and then allow Damien to like dive into my waist here, for example, because this is not going to be great for me here. And instead, I'd want to be trying to go from supine to seated in one movement where I can defend a lot of those opportunities. And it might be, I try and come up seated and he's coming back in towards me here and I can go back to supine and defend. I don't want to sort of come up and stop in the middle here where I'm going to be very vulnerable.
Thank you for watching. If you want access to over 1,000 more videos, as well as community chat where you can ask questions, get feedback, and also it's the only place where I actually take video requests, check out the link below.